Hi, everybody. It's Jennifer from Weinberger Law Group. Thank you so much for joining us today for another webinar. In today's webinar, we're going to talk about things you can do before you divorce to help your marriage get through a crisis that you may be facing. We're going to give you some advice on staying married from a psychological and legal perspective. And to that end, I am welcoming Sonia Barry with me as my co-host today. She's a licensed professional counselor. She's out of Mountain Lakes, New Jersey, and she's going to co-host with me. So I welcome Sonia. Sonia, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's get started. As you see, we have the PowerPoint ready to go here. I'm going to start, as we always do, with our disclaimer. This presentation contains general information, not legal advice. That goes for Sonia too. It's general information. Any people that we talk about are fictional if we use them as an example. And please be sure to direct specific questions about your own situation to an attorney. Also, talk to us. We are live now here on Facebook. So if you want to ask us a question as we're going along, please feel free to do that. We'll try our best to answer you live as we are going. You can ask the question by leaving it in the box right below the presentation here. And again, we'll do our best to answer you live. If you'd rather, or if we don't get to you, please feel free to send us a private message, direct message here on Facebook, and we can answer you afterwards. So before you divorce, we're going to give you, again, some information and assistance for couples that may be struggling in their marriage.
Yes.
What are we going to cover today? Well, today we're going to talk about why some people stay in bad relationships. We're going to talk to Sonia about that. And then we're going to go into Sonia's very specific approach, the discernment counseling approach. That's what she utilizes in her practice, and she's going to tell us a lot more about that. And then I'm going to take back over and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some legal protections going forward. What you can do legally to put some parameters in place for you as a couple. And again, at the end, hopefully we'll have time for some questions and we'll give you some information on where to get some additional help. So part one, why do some people stay in bad relationships? It seems like a common question, and we put in a little bit of a quote here from Anna Paquin that says, you find happiness where you find it. Not everybody finds happiness in the same place or through the same type of relationship. So where you do find it, you know, it is what it is, and what you do with your happiness is what you really do with it. But, you know, I guess the main goal is to find your happiness. So the question is, Sonia, this is for you. I'm going to let you take over here. Why do people stay in bad relationships?
Okay, so the number one reason, or rather I should say maybe the only reason that people stay in bad relationships is fear. The fear of unknown, the fear of conflict. Now that has all of these things that come from the basic thing of fear. The fear of future. They don't know what it's going to feel like being alone. There is a safety in staying where you are. You know, people are worried about financial issues, about children, what's going to happen to them, how they are going to react to the breakup, the divorce, social implications. When people go through a divorce, it's not just a divorce, it's losing a status, it's losing, you know, your friends. You don't really know, honestly, what's going to happen. It's the loss of a dream, the loss of a status as a married man or woman. And there's cultural and family pressures. Many times there's religious pressures of staying in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, fear is definitely something even, you know, we hear as attorneys face when people come into us to discuss divorce, and all these fears come up, which I'm sure, you know, they do for you, cultural, and, you know, is there a stigma of divorce? Am I going to get excommunicated from the church? So, yeah, we definitely do too.
So one of the reasons that we combat fear is by going to professionals like divorce, attorneys, getting all your information, getting your ducks in a row, understanding and not just assuming everything. And that really puts a lot of peace, gives a lot of peace there. I know, and also coming to a therapist and making sure that your line of thinking, your emotions are all in line with where you want to go as a person. Because when a person is feeling such a big flood of emotions, you just don't know what's real anymore. And you could be a very intelligent person, very good at making decisions in other aspects of life. But when it comes to things like this, what happens by coming to an attorney and getting that first consultation, by coming to a therapist, is that you're able to untangle all of that web of fear and challenge some of the beliefs you may have sitting with a professional like that.
And you had mentioned, I had put up on the screen here, the slide, you talked about that myriad of emotions and what people are feeling when they're fearful or unhappy in marriage. And if you want to comment on that list there, it seems to be Absolutely. A pretty large list.
Yes, it is a very large list. And, you could be successful in all aspects of life. You could be a person who's managed to achieve everything they set out to achieve, their goals, whether they're personal goals, relationship goals, or even, academic or professional, as I said, goals, career goals. But if you are not happy in your relationship, it takes all the pleasure out of anything you do. Whether it's, you're going skiing or whatever, it's just this cloud that hangs over your head. It's you're just half the person that you really would be. So, people take it lightly, and it's not an illness or whatever, but it takes away from absolutely anything that you find valuable and pleasing. So the symptoms, you think that, a lot of these things are psychosomatic. They affect you. You stay in a relationship, and when we talk about fear of staying in a relationship, I know for a fact, and I know that you do also, Jennifer, that people can stay in bad relationships for years. I'm talking about 10, 15, 20 years before they can do anything about it. And when you start to feel these things, low self-esteem, you feel lonely. You're in a marriage, but you're feeling lonely. You're feeling lethargic, doing things you enjoy. You're angrier than you need to be. You're blowing up at people at work and at children. These things are important to you, but you're not basically being the kind of person you want to be. You're not living up to the standard that you feel is important to yourself. Having anxiety, less enjoyment in things that you enjoy. You get sick very quickly, so your immune system is being affected. And deviant behavior, like you feel that that you're now maybe thinking of having an affair, and you just to find some peace, some happiness, some respite. You have trouble concentrating, headaches, fatigue, lethargy, bitterness about things. And like I said, anger and short-tempered. Same thing. But if you are not the person you want to be, it behooves you to think about it. That is this what you want from your life? And that's when you come in for these consultations that we are talking about.
Oh, absolutely. And you're 100% right, Sonia. We without question and without a doubt see people, in the context of a legal consultation that are, exhibiting some of these symptoms. And, it does come up too, in relationships, and I'm sure you've seen that are potentially abusive, not necessarily even physically abusive, but perhaps financially abusive, where spouse is left to need to stay in a marriage because they're being controlled and they don't see a way out.
Absolutely. And most of the professionals, I know that divorce therapists, yes, but lawyers, everybody will give you that free consultation. So find out, come in, take that big stride, which is, coming to terms with which is already something that is already a part of your life. Some symptoms, this is the reason I put symptoms in there, because if you're seeing them, you should not keep ignoring it, because it will catch up with you.
Absolutely.
All right. So, so the question is couples counseling the only option? So sometimes, I am a therapist and I do couples counseling as well. Sometimes when you have a couple that is at such a turmoil in their marriage, at such an impasse in their relationship, and they're feeling so conflicted with each other and being together, if you put this couple and do traditional couples counseling in the way that we have been trained to do, side by side, many times it can result in the demise of the relation, accelerating the demise of the relationship. So it can sometimes be harmful in that way. And out of the need for trying to serve my couples who come into me, and I do take very extreme cases. I have gotten trained in discernment counseling, which to me is, I can't tell you how many people, when they hear about it, they say, oh my God, I wish that I knew about this years ago. I could have saved my marriage, my parents' marriage, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful protocol.
Let's talk now a little bit more in depth about that, Sonia. You talked about the discernment approach. Let's get into that. What is it?
So basically, discernment counseling is for you if you are is for somebody who has not been happy in their marriage for years. They've been considering a divorce on and off for years, but haven't been able to do anything about it. They realize that, they hate where they are in their relationship. They hate the person that they're becoming in their relationship. They may have given some empty threats to each other, but they don't even know if they truly mean it. They are going to, they feel like they have a lot to lose in a divorce, and they want to stay in the marriage, but they just don't know how. So they just keep jumping back and forth between getting a divorce and staying in the marriage, and they just don't know how to get out of that rut. They know it's affecting them, they just can't understand it. So discernment counseling offers a platform to people where they can come and realistically gauge what is it that they want to do according to their unique values, their goals in life, and their expectations from a relationship. Any good therapist always counsels you according to your values, not by what they feel is, I'm not going to be making the decision for you whether you should get a divorce or not. It has to be what you want. And the task then is to understand what the problems are and to untangle them in a way for you that you yourself make a decision on what is the best thing for you to do for yourself and for your family. So let's see what the next slide is. Basically, one can stay stuck in an unhealthy and painful situation for years before you have the guts to take any action at all. Interestingly enough, I've come to realize that for many people, the best part of discernment counseling is that it is not counseling at all. More than the wonderful things that it achieves, this attracts people to it the most. It's not, so discernment counseling is not a way to solve your problems. It's a way to specify what your problems really are and to make a decision, informed decision on whether you want to solve your problem or not. So basically at the end of discernment counseling, the couple chooses from one of the three options. Number one is leaving things as they are, which most people cannot do because they're coming to me at a point in their life where they're very uncomfortable with where things are. The other one is simple, it's divorce. The third option is to mutually agree to get into 6 months of therapy. That 6 months of therapy doesn't have to be with me. Many times, since I am maybe one of 3 therapists in all of North Jersey who are trained to do discernment counseling, other therapists also can send their clients to me just for this protocol, and then I send them back to their way for the 6 months of therapy. So the question then comes that anybody who's coming in for discernment counseling, they've already come to a place in their marriage where they've tried everything. They're very big skeptics on whether their spouse is someone that can change, or this marriage, the way it is, can be better ever. That's one thing they've managed to establish. So then how is it then that I'm coming in and offering you 6 months of counseling like it's some panacea that's suddenly going to work where it hasn't worked in the past? Many times people have gone to many therapists, many couples therapists before. So the answer to that question is that the reason, the steps that the protocol of discernment counseling takes you through is that you end up with almost an itemized list of what needs to be done, or what each person's role is individually, each person's responsibility individually, and as a couple, that tasks that need to be done and to be taken on in order for the marriage to work. So when you're at that juncture, whether you're deciding whether you want to do 6 months of counseling or not, you know exactly what you're getting into. It's not this abyss that you're walking into as you usually are. And you've heard from your spouse as a matter of going through the discernment counseling process. You have heard from your spouse, commit to making these changes. And two things that happen in discernment counseling are, two goals are that each person gets a chance to understand what their individual role is in the marriage, to bring the marriage to the point where it is, and together the three of us decide and learn what the dynamics of the relationship are that led you both to the place where the marriage is at that point. And with that important information, all we need is your motivation, and there is absolutely no reason for us not to be able to fix your marriage. So that's what this is the little piece about discernment counseling that people find so absolutely valuable. Many times, I will even have a client who's given so many threats to his wife, or the other way around, that they end up getting a divorce or getting into the divorce process for absolutely ridiculous reasons, that, oh, now I can't back off or something like that. This gives a platform to that couple to put their ego aside and to look into this. And now couples counseling cannot be done, for example, if one of the partner, or even sometimes in some cases, both people are in a relationship, whether they're cheating or not. But in discernment counseling, I can do discernment counseling even if a person is involved outside the marriage, which gives a very unique place for me to work with. I think that I've covered discernment counseling to a certain degree. I may think of some other things that I may add as we go along. But do tell me if there are any questions maybe that even you are thinking of, Jennifer.
Actually, not a question, Sonia, but I was thinking about how nice and positive this approach seems. It's not all gloom and doom and the end of the relationship and my God, we're in couples therapy and this is it. It's the end of the road. You have a very sort of positive and uplifting, yes, we can absolutely help you if, all three are willing to work. And, even if it doesn't, at least, you gave it your all and gave it your best shot. I think that's very uplifting.
Absolutely. And so the idea of discernment counseling is that it's a win-win situation for everybody all around. For example, let's take the extreme case of one of the couple, a husband or wife is involved outside the relationship. The idea is that, you can divorce your partner, but you can never divorce yourself. So if you have taken the time and the effort and put the energy into a marriage, chances are you've given it your best and you realize it hasn't worked, but it's still time in your life that you've invested in that relationship. It would behoove you to understand what went wrong, and so that it can't be repeated. The incident of divorce in second marriages is double that of the first marriages. And this helps you understand how not to make the same mistake again. So that having said, this is a benefit for both people. But for example, if somebody is being surprised by, oh, well, I'm not in love with you anymore, and, we're going to break up, it gives both people, especially the person who's being, given this information out of the blue, a platform to get some closure. People who go through the discernment counseling process are better parents. They're better at co-parenting, and they're better people. Even if they end up getting a divorce, they have better divorces because they've gotten a chance to think it through. They've gotten a chance to de-escalate, and they spend less money during the divorce process because you are actually then getting a divorce as opposed to going through unnecessary back and forth battle, because you have been able to de-escalate and resolve a lot of the unnecessary ego type issues that are very common during the divorce process for them to keep coming up.
Absolutely. We see that frequently, and we always joke that we have to, take off our lawyer hat and put on our therapist hat at various points during the process.
Yes.
And you're right, if you've worked through that, at that point, it's much easier for you to then, and this brings us to our next slide, to go forward with that legal approach to helping your marriage, even if you haven't decided to divorce.
Absolutely.
So I think that what's interesting is there is a legal approach that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about here in New Jersey, and that's called the postnuptial agreement. And this I paired up with Sonia because, number one, we love Sonia and her approach and the discernment counseling, but the postnup kind of goes hand in hand with that thought. It's specifically designed for married couples. Most people have heard of a prenuptial agreement. This is for married couples, and the postnup can include behavioral clauses as well as financial clauses in the agreement that talks about who gets what, or alimony, or things like that. It cannot, however, and this goes for prenups and postnups, it cannot include child custody terms or provisions. One, because children grow and parties' lives change so frequently. Everyone's lives are so fluid at this point that you can't pre-legislate, for lack of a better term, child custody terms or provisions. Also, the terms regarding custody parenting time have to be within the child's best interest. So the court is always going to be concerned that what's written in going forward is in the child's best interest. So avoid your child in any sort of pre or post-nup agreement. So what are the legal standards for a New Jersey post-nup? Well, there has to, number one, be full disclosure by both parties. What does that mean? Well, you can't come to the table to negotiate and become a part of a postnuptial agreement hiding assets, hiding truths. Like Sonia said, if you're having an affair outside of the marriage and your spouse doesn't know that, but you want to sit down and talk about emotions and behavior clauses, that's just not going to work. You have to have both parties at the table, open and honest. You also need to have your own attorney. Each spouse has to have an independent attorney advising them and reviewing the agreement separate and apart from the other attorney. Why does that happen? Well, because they want to make sure that one spouse's attorney isn't bullying the other spouse or coercing them into making decisions that might be not in their best interest because they're either feeling emotionally bullied or financially bullied. To that end, there can't be any coercion, no duress, no fraud. Like any contract, there has to be a meeting of the minds. It has to be fair. And the person who signs it has to have done so willingly and openly. So again, fairness There has to be equitable terms, and everyone has to have full understanding of the agreement. So a specific type of postnuptial agreement is a reconciliation agreement here in New Jersey. And again, this goes hand in hand with what Sonia was talking to us about earlier. It talks about how to distribute assets or debts in the event of a divorce. So, if there's a situation that has caused a couple to have strife and separation, but they've decided they want to work it out. They've gone to see Sonia. They feel better. They've done the discernment counseling, and they want to move forward and attempt to repair their marriage. They can put in an agreement how, if they do divorce in the future, how assets or debts are going to be distributed. Now, this helps a couple heal because the couple can feel as though they have a guarantee that what they did was not all for naught. So they now have something that they can hang their hat on that says, well, even if we do divorce in the end, we understand how the house is going to be divided and we agree to it. Some people will put as their what they're giving up or their consideration under the contract the fact that they won't pursue a divorce that's perhaps already been filed. So an example is wife has filed a complaint for divorce because husband had an extramarital affair. The husband says, listen, in exchange for your withdrawing that divorce, I promise you that I'm going to end the affair. I'm going to go into the 6 months of counseling, whatever the case may be. Not pursuing a divorce can be seen as a legitimate thing a spouse is giving up for the contract. And the court will consider that as consideration, because all contracts have to have something given up and something received in order for it to be a valid contract. That goes for these kinds of agreements as well. Court will consider not pursuing a divorce as consideration. So how do we enforce this reconciliation agreement? Well, really, the reconciliation agreement is a legal promise to remain married. And Sonia and I were actually talking about the second one here before we went on live with you guys. You can put specific terms in there about not having inappropriate, text messaging. Flirting is a little bit of a broad term. So, and that could mean different things to each spouse. And again, why Sonia and her approach is so invaluable here is, she could work out these details with the couple before they even come to the attorney so that they have a clear understanding what these parameters are for behavior. If you have to go to court to enforce this reconciliation agreement, the court, again, is going to look at, is the agreement fair to both of you? Is it lopsided? Does it look like, one of the spouses was forced to sign something or give up something that's really, the scale is like this rather than, a fair agreement? Again, is one giving up property rights if a divorce is filed? So the judge is going to say, well, is this really a contract here? What is the person giving up? Are they giving up the right to the house if a divorce is filed? Is that coercive? Again, is it fair to both parties? Was there duress? Was there fraud, coercion? We talked about that a little bit already. And it's a good idea. You may want to put in these reconciliation agreements details about why you and your spouse are experiencing this rift. So you might want to put in there, listen, I found out, husband is having an affair. I could certainly file for divorce at this point. I have the grounds to do so, but my not filing for divorce, we both view as consideration, and include a time period for the reconciliation, because you don't want to say, okay, we agree to remain married, we agree to this reconciliation agreement, and we agree to the terms, and then 2 days later file for divorce. It just does not seem as though that's fair really to either of you. So put in there that you're going to attempt to work it out, for no less than 6 months, but no more than a year, whatever works for the two of you. Oh, that's it for today. We hope that you got some information and some value out of learning about discernment counseling and some ways that you can help your marriage if you're going through a tough time, both from a psychological perspective and a legal perspective. Don't forget to subscribe to our Facebook events tab. You'll be notified when we have other upcoming live webinars. You see the website web address there for you to be able to do that. Again, Sonia joined us today, and we're so happy that she did. Here's her information. Again, it's Sonia Barry. She's a licensed professional counselor. Her practice is called Counseling with a Difference. There's the address, the telephone number, and the website. If you need to reach us, we are on the web at weinbergerlawgroup.com. There you can find a lot of information regarding divorce, separation, child support, custody, really any area of family law. Give us a call, 888-855-3014, or shoot us an email if you're ready to schedule your free consultation. Sonia, again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this. And I learned from you. That was great.
And same here. See, we're all learning. It's all a good thing.
Yes.